Hello and welcome to Connect. I'm your host, Randy Shabilo. On today's show, we'll have Warren Gherasim with Independent Investigation Services, as well as Fahim Raza, a honeybee researcher here in Saskatoon. As always, we'd like to connect with you. Follow us on Facebook at ConnectYXE, catch past interviews on YouTube, email us at connectyxe@gmail.com, or leave a message at 306-665-3796. Investigative services have changed over the years, and we have Warren Gherasim with us here today. Warren, thanks for coming down to the studio.
Thanks for having me.
I want to, first of all, congratulate you on a service with the RCMP before you started out on your own investigative services. Tell us a little bit about yourself and how you came to be here.
So I have a policing background of about 35 years. The predominant organization I served with was the RCMP, and I served across the country in a variety of roles. And then ultimately ended up in Saskatchewan at the tail end of my career, and shortly before retiring, I was the chief of police in Corman Park. So I have a rather lengthy investigative background and a lot of contacts, and later, as my career wound down in the policing side of things, I ended up doing some work in the private investigative field for a friend of mine who owned this company, and then later I decided to take the leadership role in the company and bought it, and so here I am.
Good for you. Tell me, when we look at investigations, you mentioned across Canada, does that change from province to province, or is it kind of similar as we come to Saskatchewan?
I think the laws certainly change from province to province, but the basic fundamentals of investigative activities don't. The skill sets that are required to conduct good, thorough investigations are pretty basic across the board. Really, you deal with some maybe small changes in legislative issues from jurisdiction to jurisdiction, but no, the basic investigative skill sets and the experience that you gather from them in a variety of different settings are really at the core of our ability to do those types of things.
So when someone would call you, maybe let's touch on what you don't do, and then we can branch out into what you do focus on.
So that's a good place to start, because a lot of people have misconceptions about what private investigators do. I think a lot of our conceptions are based on what we see on TV. And that's the guy that follows around people looking for infidelity issues, the cheating husband, and getting some video on him, and those types of things. And that's really not a part of the work that we do. Canada's a no-fault divorce jurisdiction, and you don't need proof of infidelity to move forward with a separation or a divorce action in our courts. So really, that's not the kind of area that we want to get involved in, certainly at Independent Investigation Services. We tend to recommend that people go and seek legal counsel for those types of issues, instead of essentially wasting their money on something that they don't have to. There are a variety of other things that I'd say that there's not a lot of surveillance and things of that nature that we don't spy on a lot of people. I think most of our investigations center around our interview activities and finding information from sources that maybe not readily available to most of the public, or they're not aware of how to obtain that type of information to support whatever it is they're doing.
So it would be more of a corporate type of a phone call that you would expect to take care of matters that they might have.
Yeah, I would say that the majority of clients that seek private investigations are corporate in nature. One of the big ones is insurance. There's a lot of potential for fraud in insurance claims, and so insurance companies protect themselves either with in-house special investigators, or some companies contract private investigation organizations such as mine to do that work for them. And so that's a large part of what we do. There are also some other applications in there. Certainly non-insurance applications would include things like employee harassment and malfeasance scenarios, where small to mid-sized companies might have some issues in-house with harassment complaints and so forth, and don't have the benefit of a large HR department to handle those things for them. So, often the business owner finds himself wearing all these hats that he's legislatively required to do. And so at the end of the day, he may not have the skill sets to conduct an investigation, or may not be in a situation where he's the best person to do so. There's power dynamics at play in organizations, and ultimately if you determine there is harassment, or even if there isn't, either way, an investigation can be upsetting to some employees. And certainly if you've got to be the manager or the boss of those employees post the investigation, it might be pretty difficult to kind of get back to normal in the workplace. So we really highly recommend that organizations that are looking to have that type of activity investigated, that they contact an independent investigator to come in, because that investigator is not part of the power dynamic in the business. And any decisions or any conclusions that are drawn as a result of our investigations can be seen as objective, because we're not a part of the dynamics inside the business, and then we would then offer our conclusions to the business owner or manager, who then at that point has a legislative requirement to follow his policies and act upon those findings. And often harassment doesn't necessarily exist in situations where we think it does. So we'll give them an understanding of what the law is and what their situation looks like, and allow them to make some well-considered decisions after that.
So it puts in front of the corporation, the employer primarily, a list of choices that they can then make based on the investigative results that you delivered.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's not to take the place of legal counsel. It may be, they may want to make some inquiries, but it's a lot easier for them to contact a lawyer and get some really good advice when they're holding all of the investigative cards, when they know exactly what type of situation played out and the possible ramifications.
So would you have a large toolbox to pull from? In other words, if, set of binoculars, I don't know what you would use to try and determine the truth and let the investigation reveal what you're looking for?
I think certainly we could conduct activities like surveillance and so forth, but generally speaking, it means going into a business environment and running a set of interviews and using those interview skills that I've obtained over the years as a police officer, and applying them to a situation so that I can extract the most and best information that I can out of the situation, and then condense that into a well-written report that takes into consideration everybody's viewpoints and submissions, and then gives the business owner or operator something to work from going forward. And the report is where the value is. It's somebody taking that information and putting it into an extremely organized and condensed fashion that's usable for them and for lawyers, or to go to the Ministry of Labor Relations with, in terms of submitting how they dealt with things, should there ever be a complaint later, that kind of thing.
I'd imagine that has to grow into some liabilities and overpayments if someone was fraudulently obtaining, any payments. If I was doing that, would I get hooked up to a lie detector test of some kind, or how does that work?
That is one of the tools in our toolbox. We use an instrument called the eye detect, and that's technology that comes out of a company named Converse in Utah. And so over several years, this technology has been developed, and now essentially what it is it uses a retinal scanner to watch the eyes of the person while they take a test on a computer screen, and the retinal scanner then measures and records the movements of the eye, and then there's computer programs, obviously, that then would make determinations as to the results of that, and reveal if somebody's being untruthful. So we do offer that in a scenario, so in a workplace malfeasance environment, for example, where maybe property is missing or money's missing, and maybe the employer's not sure, or he only has suspicions of who's been involved. We would go in and conduct a variety of interviews with everybody and make a determination of what our suspect pool might look like. And then ultimately, maybe we would engage in some eye detect testing to confirm and then refine the focus of our investigation. It's not an end-all solution, but it is something that would really help us to refine our investigations down to manageable numbers in terms of suspects and that kind of thing.
Is it a requirement that someone must speak to you or with you in terms of if it was an SGI claim? I'm just pulling that out of the air. If someone maybe was on a medical type of claim, would you be required, or are you required to talk to you? Can someone say no?
Absolutely. Then there's no legislation that requires anybody to do anything, and I think if you looked into the labor relation laws in this country, you won't find anything that requires anybody to submit to tests. But that doesn't mean that it wouldn't be to your advantage to submit to the test. If you have nothing to hide, then obviously you want to show your employer that you're being cooperative and assisting the investigation, as opposed to the opposite, which could certainly draw suspicions towards you if you refuse to provide any kind of submission
Sure.
into the test. So I think it's also a matter of not just decision, but it's ultimately the relationship you want to have with your employer afterwards. And now I suppose employers could write this kind of thing in contractually, that should these scenarios arise, that it would be incumbent upon an employee to assist with an investigation in any way, shape, or form. And in fact, some insurance policies are written in this regard, that they require the claimant to assist fully and cooperatively with the investigation should they make a claim. So there are contractual areas that might require people to submit to this, but certainly no legal authority.
I call you Chief, but Warren, I want to congratulate you on this move. It's well suited. I see your passion for it, and a good hand in the glove, if you will, for you. I wish you great success in your future endeavors. Thanks for taking time today.
Thank you very much for having me.
We'll be right back, folks.